So you're in the market for your first B&T and you're confused. And I don't blame you, because B&T makes a lot of really, really nice subguns. And as luck would have it, I've owned most of these subguns, and I spent weeks toiling over which one I should get first. And I couldn't make a decision. I ended up buying all of them. So my hopes for this video is that I can help you make an informed decision, because it doesn't take the smartest man on earth to decide whether the Ghm9 is the right B&T for you. So without further ado, I give you the Grasshopper Mouse 9 for those who are not sure. Okay, the Ghm9 is a 9mm carbine designed by B&T and released in 2017, and it was actually named the Grasshopper Mouse as a dig at CZ, the Scorpion Killer. The grasshopper mouse is a stout carnivorous rodent distinctly different from other types of mice due to their meat-heavy diet. Some interesting attributes of the grasshopper mouse are its high-pitched howl and resistance to venom, which allows it to primarily feed on poisonous scorpions. Not only is the name a dig at CZ's Scorpion Evo, but B&T actually took that one step further by engraving a little scorpion being eaten by a grasshopper mouse on the inside of the receiver. The Ghm9 is essentially B&T's modular platform designed for the civilian market that received a lot of trickle-down technology from its big brother, the APC9 Pro. It's chambered in 9mm, although it comes in 45 ACP, and I've even seen a 40 cal GHM. Just like a Gen 1 APC9, the Ghm9 has a reciprocating charge handle with B&T's renowned hydraulic buffer system. Although the Gen 1 did have a monolithic upper compared to the current versions that have a separate handguard, giving it the ability to swap handguards, barrels, and even SD kits for integrated suppression. The Ghm9 comes in a few barrel lengths from 4.3, 6.9, even 9.1, 16, and in places unfortunate enough like Canada, 18.6. If you compare the Ghm9 and the APC9 from tip to toe, the 6.9-inch variants both have tri-lug barrels, just like most B&Ts. The difference is that on the Ghm9, the tri-lug also has a threaded barrel on the end of the tri-lug. The Ghm9 handguard has a square profile that is slim and easy to grip. Grabbing by the magwell, you notice that you have just enough room to hold the gun where the charge handle is not hitting your hand. I bring this up because the Ghm9 reciprocating charge handle moves with the bolt, and therefore, if you hit it with your hand while it's operating, it will cause malfunctions. The charge handle can be swapped from left to right depending on the shooter's preference, and the swap only takes about a minute, and the takedown is very easy. The charge handle does poke out a bit, and if you lay the gun down on the charge handle side, it will not lay flat. There's also a folding charge handle upgrade, but that doesn't work on both sides, it's left side only. If you compare the receiver of a Ghm9 to an APC9, you'll notice that the Ghm9 has a longer receiver as well as a longer bolt. And I really love the look of the Ghm9, and the rear doesn't really affect the aesthetics for me personally, however it does affect the stock compatibility. The extra length on the receiver actually affects the length of pull of many stocks. Out of all the OEM stocks, I would only recommend the telescoping stock. The skeleton stock is actually very uncomfortable. I get bruised on my shoulder just from shouldering it. And take this with a grain of salt, because I have seen people running a Kate Moss stock on a Ghm9, and they said it was perfect length, where for me, it was ridiculously long. And even though I tried to convince the guy who bought it off of me that it was too long, he bought it. He also said it was ridiculously long. And this is probably my biggest gripe with the Ghm9 platform, because the stock doesn't have the buffer attached to it, yet it's more expensive than the APC9 stock that has the buffer. When you first get hooked on B&T, a lot of people fall in love with the minimalistic styling of their telescoping stocks, and the sticker shock can be hard to cope with. Many, including myself, are quick to notice that there are many other stocks that can be acquired for far less than a B&T telescoping stock assembly. Just be warned that although a lot of these are very Gucci, you're probably going to end up getting the telescoping stock if you already had that inkling, so you might as well just get it first and save your money. Originally, I'd purchased the skeletonized stock from A3 Tactical for the Ghm9, but I never received the 1913 adapter, and then I ended up running it on my APC9K and selling my Ghm9. And that 9.5-inch stock felt perfect on every APC9, so that's how I figured it was way too long for the Ghm9. I also got a PMM Kate Moss stock that was 8.75 inches, and that was also way too long. If you compare the receiver on an APC9 to a Ghm9, you'll notice that the Ghm9 has a lower rail, so you're going to have to run higher optics for it to be comfortable. You'll also notice that wider optics might interfere with your operation of the charge handle. Okay, and that brings us to internals, which is going to be the biggest difference between the Ghm9 and the APC9 platforms. The Ghm9 has two uncontained recoil springs that sit on a recoil spring guide, compared to the APC9 that has one contained recoil spring. To remove the Ghm9 stock, it's the same as the APC9. You pull down while the lower is removed until the retaining nub is disengaged from the receiver. The only difference is that because the springs aren't contained, you need to stop them from flying out of the back of the receiver when you pull the stock off. The same goes for when you're putting the gun back together. You need to insert the springs and spring guide into the bolt and using the stock assembly to compress the springs until you can lock the stock into the receiver. The GHM9 bolt is very long compared to the APC9, and you'll notice a very big difference is that the hydraulic buffer is located on the bolt, whereas on the APC9, it's located on the stock block. But visually, the buffers look almost identical, just the location is different. And now let's get to the lower. If you've seen one B&T lower, then you've probably seen them all, because the GHM9 shares the same lower as the SBC9 and the APC9 lineup, M4 style controls. B&T also makes an upgraded aluminum lower that's also compatible with the GHM9. It can be had with an Elfman trigger, gives a little bit of a more Gucci feel with a lot more durability obviously. Keep in mind that the controls are still polymer on the aluminum lower. Okay, I'm going to get into the pros and cons of the GHM9 platform right now. Okay, first pro is going to be the cost. It's the cheapest entry of all B&T platforms, and you still get the same quality with any B&T, so it's really awesome. Okay, the second pro is going to be that the GHM9 is the easiest B&T I've ever charged, except for the 223 or the 308, ironically. All the other subguns are way harder to charge. This is probably due to the dual non-contained springs, and possibly due to the fact that the GHM9 does not have a fully automatic variant like the APC9 does. So if you want a good PCC for your wifey, you might want to get the GHM9. You'll notice that my mom couldn't charge any of the B&Ts when I took her out that day. She just had trouble charging every one of them. And that brings me to the third pro of the GHM9 platform, and that is the cool name and the story behind the name. It doesn't get any cooler than the Grasshopper Mouse 9 and the fact there's an actual mouse that eats scorpions. So that's another plus. Okay, now for the cons. First off, it's going to be the larger bolt. I feel like the reciprocating mass of the larger bolt isn't exactly good for recoil. Next, it's going to be the reciprocating charge handle. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of room when you're gripping by the magwell, and you have to actually watch out for that charge handle slamming back and forth. Third con is going to be the extra length in the back of the receiver and the stock compatibility. That is a con. You can put any stock on an APC9, but you can't on the GHM9. It's not that there isn't any options, there just isn't nearly as many. And that brings me to the next con, which is takedown. It's not super hard to take down by any means. You just gotta watch for those uncontained recoil springs flying out, and there's extra parts. And that brings me to my final con of the GHM9, and that is the lower height of the rail. Although some people might find it more comfortable because it's smaller up front to grip, I just find it a con because it doesn't allow you to run a low optic as comfortably. Just like always, take this with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to turn you away from your GHM9. It is a beautiful platform. It was my first B&T. I have immense love for this platform. I still wish I had one. I have huge regrets for selling all of my GHM9s, and I won't be able to get another one until we get a new government. So do me a favor and put an L in the comments for the liberals. I just want to take this time to apologize for all the stock photos. I don't have a GHM9 anymore, so I couldn't film my own. I'm hoping that I was still able to hit all the points I was trying to hit and help at least one person decide if a GHM9 is right for them. Be on the lookout for my no music playlist, all of my videos with no music for those who asked for it. And if you're liking the B&T content, please consider giving me a like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video, and possibly check out this video right here on the TP9, the smallest subgun on Earth. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.